it's Nico Rosberg, and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate.
Toto Wolff breaks silence and makes a shocking revelation about the infamous 2016 Spanish Grand Prix crash involving Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. The two Mercedes teammates collided on the very first lap, sending both cars out of the race and handing a crucial victory to Red Bull. Toto Wolff was furious, and reportedly even discussed serious action with Mercedes chief Dieter Zetsche, including the possibility of suspending or even firing both drivers. But after the heated discussions, Wolff made a bombshell decision. If Hamilton and Rosberg crashed again because of their intense rivalry, they would have to pay 50% of the damage themselves, regardless of who was actually at fault. That decision showed just how serious the situation had become inside Mercedes. The financial punishment was huge, with Rosberg revealing that one crash alone cost him around $360,000. But was this bitter rivalry and the growing tension inside Mercedes also connected to Hamilton's later decision to leave the team? In this video, we break down what really happened, why Toto Wolff was so angry, and how the explosive Hamilton-Rosberg rivalry changed Mercedes forever. Let's go back to May 2016, the Spanish Grand Prix at Barcelona. Mercedes had dominated Formula One for 2 years straight, and the only real threat to their drivers came from each other. Hamilton and Rosberg were locked in one of the most intense championship battles the sport had ever seen. Two teammates, one car capable of winning every race, and only one seat at the top. On the opening lap, Rosberg defended his lead into turn 3. Hamilton went for the gap on the inside. The two cars touched, both spun off into the gravel, and Mercedes' guaranteed victory vanished completely. Red Bull, who had no real business winning that afternoon, inherited a shock 1-2 finish in front of a stunned home crowd. For a team used to complete dominance, this wasn't just a disappointing result. It was a genuine embarrassment, a self-inflicted disaster played out in front of a global audience. And it happened because two drivers on the same team couldn't find a way to share the same stretch of track. Team boss Toto Wolff was reportedly livid. According to Rosberg, Wolff stormed into the garage demanding to know what the two of them thought they were doing out there, furious that they had handed a certain win straight to what he called the fierce enemy. Here's where the story gets interesting. For years, fans only knew about the public fallout, the tense post-race press conferences, the frosty handshakes on the podium, the visible strain between two men who had known each other since their childhood karting days. But what nobody knew until very recently is that Wolff didn't just get angry and quietly move on. He picked up the phone to Mercedes' parent company chief Dieter Zetsche and had a serious conversation about disciplinary action against both of his star drivers. Speaking recently, Rosberg confirmed that this conversation truly happened, though he pushed back on the idea that outright firing was ever seriously on the table. In his own telling, the more realistic outcome discussed behind closed doors was a one-race suspension for one or possibly both drivers, a first-step punishment rather than an outright dismissal. Either way, the fact that Wolff felt the need to escalate this to the very top of Mercedes' corporate structure tells you how close this rivalry came to spiraling out of the team's control. And the most remarkable part of all, neither Hamilton nor Rosberg knew a single thing about it at the time. It stayed hidden behind closed doors for nearly a decade. So if firing them wasn't the final answer Mercedes settled on, what did Toto Wolff actually do instead? He introduced a financial punishment designed to make both drivers think twice before risking contact again. Wolff put a contract in front of both Hamilton and Rosberg that laid out one brutal rule. Anytime the two of them crashed into each other, they would each personally cover 50% of the total repair costs, no matter whose fault the stewards ruled it to be. Think about that for a second. It didn't matter if the official verdict said it was 90% one driver's mistake. Both drivers paid an identical share regardless. It was designed to remove blame from the equation and force both men to take full personal responsibility for avoiding contact in the first place. Rosberg has now put an exact number on just how expensive that turned out to be. The Barcelona crash alone cost him around $360,000 out of his own pocket. Hamilton was hit with an identical bill for the same incident. That works out to a combined $720,000 paid between two Mercedes teammates, all stemming from a single first-lap incident. Rosberg didn't hide just how much that stung. He described the process as far from a fun exercise and admitted it did calm things down considerably between the two of them, at least when it came to avoiding needless contact on track. Beyond the financial punishment itself, Rosberg says Mercedes learned a much bigger lesson from the entire saga, one centered heavily on communication. Looking back, he believes the team could have done a better job preparing both drivers for these high-stakes wheel-to-wheel scenarios before they happened, rather than scrambling afterward to assign blame once the damage was done. In the aftermath of Barcelona, Mercedes built out a detailed set of racing guidelines, essentially a rulebook covering who held the right of way in almost every conceivable wheel-to-wheel situation, which car had priority if a tire was alongside at a certain reference point, what exactly counted as being far enough alongside to legitimately claim a corner. Rosberg says the team went into extraordinary detail, effectively building a shared reference point so that if contact ever happened again there would be clarity instead of chaos, because according to Rosberg, that chaos was really the underlying danger the whole time. When nobody inside the team could agree on who was actually at fault after a crash, people naturally started taking sides. Drivers felt unfairly treated by their own team, and that, he explained, is precisely when tension inside a high-pressure team can spiral completely out of control. So how does all of this ultimately connect to what came next for both drivers? Rosberg went on to win that dramatic 2016 championship, beating Hamilton to the title by the narrowest of margins. Then, in one of the most stunning moments in modern Formula One history, he abruptly retired just days after finally clinching it, right at the peak of his own career. Hamilton, on the other hand, stayed on at Mercedes for many more years, going on to win several more world championships with the team before his own high-profile departure in more recent seasons. Whether the deep scars left behind from that turbulent 2016 season, the near-firing, the six-figure fines, the years of simmering tension played any lasting role in Hamilton's eventual decision to leave Mercedes is something only he and Toto Wolff can say for certain. But what is now clear is that the relationship between driver and team was pushed to a genuine breaking point that year, far closer to collapse than most fans ever realized at the time. It's a powerful reminder that even inside the most dominant team in modern Formula One history, sustained success never came without serious internal battles behind the scenes, battles that until now mostly played out quietly behind closed doors, hidden from the outside world. So there you have it, the real story behind one of the most explosive periods in Mercedes' Formula One history. A single crash that nearly cost two world champions their seats, a $720,000 lesson in shared accountability, and a bitter rivalry that reshaped how one of the greatest teams in racing history still operates today. So, what do you think? Was Toto Wolff right to make them pay out of their own pockets, or should he have taken even harder action back in 2016? Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep breakdown, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more in-depth Formula One stories you genuinely won't find anywhere else. See you all in the very next one. Emerson Fittipaldi breaks his silence on George Russell's claims that Mercedes is treating him unfairly and giving Kimi Antonelli a better car. The F1 legend has responded strongly, making it clear that Russell needs to stop making excuses and prove himself on the track. Fittipaldi backed Kimi Antonelli, saying that a 19-year-old driver is already ahead of Russell and showing incredible speed and talent. His message to Russell was simple: instead of finding problems within the team, focus on performance, deliver results, and prove your worth like a champion. One of the most surprising storylines of the entire F1 season, the collapse of George Russell's championship charge, and the rise of the man nobody saw coming, his own teammate, Kimi Antonelli. At the start of the year, Russell was the clear favorite. New power unit regulations, a Mercedes seat with no Hamilton looming over him, and an opening round win in Australia to boot. Everything pointed to this being George Russell's year. Instead, it's turned into something else entirely, and now, F1 legend Emerson Fittipaldi is weighing in on what's gone wrong and what Russell needs to do to fix it. Let's rewind. George Russell entered this season as the man Mercedes was building around. He won the season opener in Australia, and for a moment, it looked like the championship was his to lose. Since then, just one more win. Meanwhile, his 19-year-old teammate has racked up 6 victories and turned the Mercedes garage carriage upside down. Russell now sits third in the drivers' standings, a staggering 59 points behind Antonelli. 59 points. That's not a rookie hanging around the fringes of the title fight. That's a teenager dominating his experienced teammate in his rookie season. What happened? A mix of reliability problems and, more concerning for Russell, a genuine lack of raw pace. The car that won in Melbourne hasn't been the car showing up since, or at least not in Russell's hands. Think about what that actually means for a driver of Russell's caliber. This isn't a backmarker complaining about an uncompetitive car. This is a driver who beat Lewis Hamilton, who finished on multiple podiums, who was widely tipped as a future world champion, suddenly finding himself unable to extract the same pace from the same machinery as a teenager in his first full season. That's the part that should worry Mercedes and excite everyone else. Because when the same car produces 6 wins for one driver and just 2 for the other, the conversation stops being about the car entirely. It becomes about the man behind the wheel, and right now, that conversation isn't going Russell's way. Kimi Antonelli isn't just having a good rookie season. He's rewriting what a rookie season is supposed to look like. Fittipaldi, who has known Antonelli since his karting days, didn't hold back his admiration. Kimi Antonelli is doing a fantastic job, and he's showing his potential. Fittipaldi said, "I've known him since he was racing in karts many years ago. I know Marco, his father, very well, and I know the family well. Marco even coached my son Emo in F4. It's a great Italian family from Bologna, good people, racing people. This isn't just a driver having a hot streak. This is a kid who's been on the radar of F1 royalty for years, finally proving on the biggest stage that the hype was real. And at just 19 years old, he's not just competing for wins, he's competing for a world championship in his rookie year." Fittipaldi put it plainly, "I think for sport it's good to have a new boy on the block, you know. He's only 19, and he can win the championship. Let that sink in." A 2-time world champion is saying out loud that this teenager can win it all in year 1, and Fittipaldi's endorsement carries weight precisely because it isn't casual praise from a fan on social media. This is a man who has watched Antonelli grow up in the sport, who knows the family personally, who has seen the work that went in long before anyone outside Italy was paying attention. When someone with that kind of history says a 19-year-old is title material, it's not hype, it's a genuine informed assessment from someone who has nothing to gain by inflating it. That context matters. 6 race wins, a commanding lead over an established teammate, and an approach that looked remarkably composed for someone so new to F1's biggest stage. That combination is what makes Antonelli so dangerous in a title fight. So where does that leave George Russell? According to Fittipaldi, it leaves him in a battle that's as much mental as it is mechanical. Antonelli isn't just beating Russell on raw numbers, he's applying a kind of pressure that Russell has never had to deal with before. Not from a 7-time champion teammate, not from years of hype, from a 19-year-old who's simply outperforming him race after race. He's putting tremendous pressure on George Russell, and George again has shown he's strong, Fittipaldi said. That's the key phrase, he's shown he's strong. Fittipaldi isn't writing Russell off. He's not saying the Briton doesn't have what it takes. What he's saying is that the way Russell responds to this pressure, right now, in this exact moment of his career, will define the rest of his season, maybe the rest of his career. And then comes the real message. The one aim